Hello, world, and welcome one and all. My name is Cameron Ludit. I'm here today with you for your Just Be Better card of the day. I will be going back to the Morgan Greer Tarot today. It's my first tarot deck, and it's my favorite. It just calls to me. So it's the one that I always like to go back to. And without further ado, card of the day is the Moon card. And so the Moon card is one of my favorites, and it corresponds to Pisces and um, we have the waters here and the crustacean. It's our subconscious coming out of our emotional depths. And then we have the two towers over here that correspond to Boaz and Jakim of the Kabbalistic tree of life. And then we have the wolf and the dog here. And human beings have two aspects of their nature. We are both domesticated and we are both wild. And in the world that we live in today, we are domesticated tax slaves. We are domesticated human livestock in a series of global human farms. And it's it's winter outside. My ancestors, I'm Inuvialuit. Once upon a time, that the people of my heritage, my ancestry, lived out there with no electricity. It's mind boggling to me how many animals live out in nature without fire, without electricity, without any of the luxuries that we have. And uh, Joe Rogan has a joke back from his like 2006, 2004 stand up, whenever it came out. If I send you out into the woods with a bucket and a hatchet, how long is it going to take you to come back with the internet? And we have a culture, an artificial culture that just gives us stuff that we have no idea how it works. I have no idea how this microphone works. I have no idea how the computer works. I don't know how to make the ink for the card. I don't know how to make the card. I don't know how to make the blades used to cut the paper to make the decks. I don't know how to make the vehicles used to ship the cards out across the world. It's uh, I'm kind of useless in the sense of my ancestral knowledge, which is really a big part of the colonial agenda was to steal the knowledge away from the indigenous so that they would be reliant on the colonial system. It's where I live in the prairies. There used to be in 1867 40 million buffalo across North America. In Canada, it was 10 million. In all of Canada, in 1867, there was 100,000 Indigenous people in all of Canada, never mind just the prairies. So if we took all of the people from the prairies or from Canada and put them in the prairies, that's 100,000 human beings to 10 million buffalo. That is so much food. The buffalo were food, shelter, clothing, tools. It was everything that the indigenous needed to live off of. And from 1867, colonialists destroyed all of the buffalo from 10 million to 150 in Canada. In North America, from 40 million to 400 buffalo. I live in Edmonton, Alberta, and from 10 million buffalo to 150, that's the equivalent of if we could only gas up in Red Deer. And so that completely destroyed the indigenous way of life and forced the indigenous people onto reserves and become dependent on a colonial system to take care of them, which failed miserably and caused generations upon generations of trauma. And so people will justify all of it because human beings now are like animals in a zoo that don't know how to live in nature and don't have the skill sets to live by themselves. People don't know anything really. And this is where the moon is the darkness. It is when we are in the darkness and there's little shadows and people are afraid. The moon corresponds to fear and illusion. And that is how human civilization functions. Humans are fear-based creatures living under the illusion that this artificial reality that we have is the real way of life and it's how we must function, when it really is just a representation of humanity's lack of knowledge of how to live in the natural world. And it is perpetuating the man-made extinction event that we are going through now. We are living through the Holocene extinction event, where our civilization, in order to expand and grow and keep the economy functioning, destroys biodiversity in mass, which is what life requires in order to keep on living. There's so many different ways that life can die, and there's so many things that can go wrong, that life requires biodiversity, because if the dinosaurs are gone, there's other forms of life that can take over and still live. And so humanity right now is destroying biodiversity all over the world. And just like when you look at a forest and then that forest gets clear cut in order to plant one type of grain or to have one type of livestock, and you think about how many different life forms, each that when you clear cut a forest, every single one of those plants is a different form of life. It's all of the different critters that live on the ground, all of the insects, all of the birds. There's so much that, and then all of a sudden you clear cut forest and so that you could build more houses, and then all of a sudden it's just concrete and houses, cookie cutter houses, and just humans, and maybe a dog and a cat, and maybe a parrot, and maybe some rabbits, when that used to be home for so many other forms of life which do not matter in our human civilization. The only thing that matters in our human civilization is that the economy functions and that rich men keep getting richer. And so this is where the moon, to be able to access our subconscious, to be able to go deep within our emotional depths and recognize the illusions we live our life by. This is the step right before enlightenment. It's unless you can admit there's a problem, you can never find the solution. And in between domestication, in between our wild nature, that is the path that we must learn how to walk. It's we are too intelligent and have too much ability as humans to solely live as animals, to simply be beasts and not be able to use our conscious mind in order to make decisions in the world. There is another aspect, though, where there are aspects within ourselves that are just intrinsic to our being. That's our wild nature. We are free by nature. Emergency vehicle going somewhere. No flashy lights. And so we are wild and free. And that is one aspect of our nature, but that aspect of our nature needs to be self-tamed. We don't need other forms of domestication. We need to learn how to control ourselves so that we don't allow other people to control us just so that we could feed an economy that's destroying the planet. And That's going to be all for our card of the day today. I hope you have yourself a wonderful day, and I will see you tomorrow.